In the heart of a bustling city in Nigeria, a young man named Kenneth was born into a life of privilege. His father, Chief Edward Okafor, was a highly influential political figure, respected across the country. Their family name carried weight, opening doors that remained shut for others. Wealth, prestige, and power were woven into the fabric of Kenneth's life from the moment he took his first breath. From a young age, Kenneth was groomed for greatness. He attended the best private schools, surrounded by children of the elite. His father ensured he lacked nothing: luxurious vacations, expensive cars, and an upbringing most could only dream of. But unlike many children of the wealthy, Kenneth was not reckless or spoiled. Instead, he was intelligent, focused, and determined to carve his own path. At the age of 18, Kenneth left Nigeria for the United Kingdom, where he attended one of the most prestigious universities to study medicine. His father had pulled strings to secure his admission, but Kenneth's brilliance and dedication to his studies soon proved that he belonged there. He excelled in every subject, earning the admiration of his professors and peers. Years passed, and after rigorous training and sleepless nights, Kenneth finally graduated as a medical doctor. He had dreams of making a difference, of saving lives, and of earning his own respect outside his father's shadow. However, before he could decide his next steps, his father made arrangements to bring him back to Nigeria. The moment Kenneth set foot in Lagos, he realized his father had already planned his future. A state-of-the-art private hospital had been built in his name, fully equipped with the latest technology and the best medical staff money could buy. "This is your legacy, son," Chief Edward said, his deep voice filled with authority. "You don't need to struggle. I have set everything in place for you. Now, all you have to do is take your place." Kenneth stood in front of the massive hospital, his name boldly engraved on the building. A mix of emotions swirled within him. Gratitude. But also, a lingering question: was this truly what he wanted? The name of the hospital was the Comfort Clinic, a state-of-the-art medical facility strategically located in one of the busiest parts of the city. The moment it opened its doors, people from all walks of life began flooding in, eager to receive treatment from the renowned Dr. Kenneth Okafor. Despite his young age, Kenneth's expertise in the medical field was undeniable. His years of rigorous training in the UK had molded him into an exceptional doctor, and his dedication to patient care set him apart. His treatments were not just about prescribing medicine. He listened, he understood, and he genuinely cared. It didn't take long before testimonies of his skills spread like wildfire. From the moment one patient was successfully treated, word of mouth became his greatest advertisement. Stories of miraculous recoveries, compassionate care, and his unwavering attention to detail circulated throughout the city. Soon, the Comfort Clinic became the talk of the town, attracting patients from near and far. However, something unusual began to happen. While the hospital was filled with all kinds of patients, a particular demographic seemed to dominate the waiting rooms: women. At first, it seemed like a coincidence, but over time, the trend became more obvious. Young ladies, middle-aged women, and even elderly grandmothers all found reasons to visit the clinic, some with the most minor health complaints. "I have a slight headache, doctor," one woman would say, batting her eyelashes. Another would clutch her chest dramatically, saying, "My heart races every time I think of you. Every time I climb the stairs." Kenneth, being a professional, treated each patient with respect and care, completely oblivious to their true intentions. But his nurses, especially the older ones, noticed what was happening. "Dr. Kenneth, these women are not sick. They are lovesick," Nurse Omalicha whispered one afternoon. Kenneth chuckled, shaking his head. "Come on, Nurse Omalicha. They're just patients." But the evidence was undeniable. Women were drawn to him, not just because of his skills as a doctor, but because of his striking looks, gentle demeanor, and the mystery surrounding his wealth and success. Some even went as far as faking illnesses just to get a consultation with him. Others took things to an extreme, waiting outside the clinic for hours, hoping to catch a glimpse of him leaving for the day. It wasn't long before his reputation as the most eligible bachelor in the city started making headlines. But amidst all the admiration and attention, Kenneth had no idea that one woman among them was different. and that her presence in his life would change everything. Every morning, the front of Dr. Kenneth's consultation room was always a sight to behold. A long queue of eager patients stretched down the hallway, each person waiting anxiously for their turn. Some had genuine health concerns, while others, especially the women, were simply there for another reason, to see Dr. Kenneth. This had been the pattern for over a year, and it only seemed to intensify. The hospital's reputation had grown beyond just medical excellence. People now associated the comfort clinic with the legendary Dr. Kenneth, whose hands were said to bring healing, whose voice alone could calm anxieties, and whose mere presence left a lasting impression on his patients. However, the most fascinating stories were often shared by women. They were the ones who spoke of how he saved their lives, how his touch felt different, and how his smile alone could make a person feel instantly better. Whether these were exaggerated tales or heartfelt truths, one thing was certain: Dr. Kenneth had become a sensation. Among the many women who had become regulars at the clinic, one particular lady stood out: Mrs. Rose. Mrs. Rose was a stunning woman in her early 30s, with smooth dark skin, an elegant posture, and a confident aura that made her hard to ignore. She was married to a wealthy businessman, but despite her seemingly perfect life, she found herself utterly captivated by Dr. Kenneth. Her obsession had started the day her best friend, Madame Cindy, had shared a story with her. "You won't believe this, Rose," Cindy had said, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Dr. Kenneth isn't just a doctor. He's a miracle worker. The way he treats his patients, the way he speaks, it's like he sees into your soul. You feel healed even before he touches you." Rose had laughed at first, thinking Cindy was exaggerating, but curiosity had gnawed at her. The very next week, she had booked an appointment for a full-body checkup, even though she was perfectly healthy. And that was the beginning of her new addiction. From that moment on, she became a regular client at the Comfort Clinic. Every week, without fail, she booked a medical checkup. If it wasn't a checkup, she would come up with another excuse: a slight headache, mild stomach pain, or even a sudden concern about her blood pressure. The nurses quickly noticed her unusual habit. "Nurse Omalicha, is it just me, or does Mrs. Rose come here too often?" one of the younger nurses whispered one morning. "It's not just you," Omalicha replied, watching as Rose stepped into Kenneth's office with a bright smile. "She's not sick. She's here for the doctor." The young nurse giggled. "Does Dr. Kenneth notice?" Omalicha shook her head. "He's too professional to suspect anything. But trust me, Rose isn't here for medicine. She's here for him." But what neither the nurses nor Kenneth knew was that Mrs. Rose had a secret. She wasn't just fascinated by Dr. Kenneth, she had fallen in love with him. And this was only the beginning of something that could change everything. For some time now, Engineer Segan, a well-respected and wealthy man in the city, had begun noticing a disturbing change in his wife's behavior. At first, he dismissed it as stress, perhaps from work, or maybe even the pressure of their childless marriage. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, he couldn't ignore it anymore. His wife, Rose, was no longer the same woman he married. She had become distant, cold, and uninterested in their marriage. She barely spoke to him unless necessary, and even when she did, it was with forced politeness rather than the warmth they once shared. At night, the distance between them grew even more unbearable. Each time Segan reached for her, hoping to rekindle their intimacy, she would pull away. "I'm not feeling too well tonight," she would say, turning her back to him. Other nights, she would complain about headaches, dizziness, or stomach pains. The excuses were endless, always medical-related. At first, Segan was patient. Maybe she's really not feeling well, he told himself. But after months of the same routine, he started to suspect something was wrong. He watched her closely. She was always distracted, constantly smiling at her phone, lost in thoughts when she thought no one was watching. And then there were her frequent hospital visits. "Why do you go to the hospital every week?" Segan had asked her one evening, trying to sound casual. Rose had barely looked up from her phone. "Just routine checkups. You know, it's important to monitor one's health." "But every week?" he pressed. She had sighed, clearly annoyed. What's wrong with wanting to stay healthy? Her defensive response only deepened his suspicion. Something was definitely off. At first, he thought it might be because of their inability to conceive. They had been married for 5 years, and despite multiple attempts, they still didn't have a child. Perhaps, he reasoned, this was making her feel depressed. But then another thought crept into his mind. What if there was another reason? What if Rose's coldness wasn't just about their childlessness? What if she was hiding something? Engineer Segan was a man of logic, a man who built structures and solved complex engineering problems with precision. But now, for the first time in his life, he felt like he was dealing with an equation he couldn't solve. And he was determined to find out the truth. Let's find out in the part 2 of this video. If you are enjoying the episode, kindly hit the subscribe button to give me a follow, like my video and share my video to as many persons as possible. See you in my next episode.